So people, this is for the benefit of anyone who may be viewing this video at a later point in time. We are recording this, we are telecasting live on YouTube. And at some point when we have the time for it, we will make an exhaustive list of questions that students have raised in this particular session. We will put it in the notes, the show notes below the video. So what do you mean by the show notes, right? Below the video, there will be some details. So if you can click on show more, then essentially what will happen is you will see a list of the questions that were discussed in that particular session. And associated with each question, we will have a timestamp. You can click on that timestamp and then you can skip to that part of the video, right? So if we have discussed around 15 or 20 questions and you are only interested in knowing about the answers to about 3 or 4, then you don't have to watch the entire video. So this is something that we do for your benefit. Please make use of it. Definitely, please, it takes us some effort to produce these videos. So please subscribe to our channel and please like, share, and subscribe our videos as well. That said, let me give you a short introduction before we launch into our session for today. My name is Karthik, and I am the founder and the chief coach at August Academy. We are based in Chennai, but we work with students from all over India and also from outside of India. We have been in business since 2013, and we've had excellent results in the last eight and a half years or so. We've had students getting into the best schools in every geography. So within the US, we've had people get into Harvard, we've had people get into Chicago Booth, Kellogg, MIT, Tuck, Columbia, Darden, Ross, you name it. In Canada, we've had people get into Rotman, Ivy, Schulich, Queens. In Europe, we've had people get into London Business School, INSEAD, HEC, IE, IESA, and SRD. Within India, of course, we've had people get into ISB and the executive programs at the IIMs. We've also had people get into NUS, NTU, and HKUST. So that is pretty much all the top ranked programs in every geography out there, right? About me, a very short introduction. I am an alumnus of IIT Madras and Stanford University, and I worked in the corporate sector, probably like many of you are doing at this point. And about a couple of years after I spent in the corporate sector, I felt like I wasn't being challenged enough, right? So that is when I decided that maybe if I had an MBA, then I would also be able to punch at a higher level, right? So I prepared for the GMAT, I got a 770, and then I also got into the exec program at Stanford, the Stanford Sloan Fellows program. Couldn't take it up for a few reasons, but the same year is when I started August Academy, all right? And since then, I've been able to help several people get into their dream schools, and I hope that we can continue our results into the upcoming year as well. That is about it from me as far as the introduction goes. Now I'm opening up the floor for any questions that any of you may have, and I'm happy to take questions. Go for it. You can speak, you can type into the chat window, whatever is more convenient to you. So somebody has a question. I am a 30-year-old Indian IT female applicant, 720 on the GMAT, 7 years work experience. I was waitlisted at Tepper last year. Do I have a chance of an admit to Tepper with without scholarship? Please tell about both. Thank you. That is definitely not sufficient information, but if you were waitlisted last year, that means they definitely considered your profile very favorably. You may want to examine why you were waitlisted. All right. It could very well be that you applied in a later round. So maybe round 2 or round 3. If that is the case, then perhaps applying in round 1 could make a huge difference. You're telling me that you applied in round 1. So that was clearly not the issue here. Perhaps the other possibility is that you belong to a very competitive pool of applicants. And if you are from an IT background, that is definitely true. In that particular case, perhaps they were not able to find that your profile was sufficiently strong in the pool of applicants who applied last year, but they really liked it. All right. So I would definitely encourage a reapplication. Just try to think about what are the 2 or 3 things that you could have done differently. It could either be goal clarity. So maybe you did not appear very convincing about your goals, or maybe you did not show sufficient leadership, or maybe your GMAT was not strong enough. So in my experience for Tepper, with an IT background, typically you would need at least a 730, 740 or so. So with a 720, you're probably just a little lower than what is expected. So these are some possibilities. Examine, introspect, and see if you can do better than that. And that should help you. Yeah. All right. Somebody else has a question, but probably typing. Okay. Does anyone have any other questions?
Hi, Karthik. Sai Kumar
Hi,
here.
Sai. Yeah, Sai. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Doing very well. Tell me, Sai.
I have a quick question. I mean, although we have been looking at, different websites of these schools, they predominantly focus on GMAT scores, and we kind of know that, for an Indian male engineer, obviously, you have to cut down your GMAT score by 30 marks to be competitive enough for that particular school. Do you have those statistics for GRE? Because you hardly find some statistics for GRE, right?
You can assume that the equivalent GMAT score. So ETS website, they have a GRE GMAT converter, right? So if they say that you need a 740 to get into a top 20, so then you may want to use the GRE GMAT converter to figure out what kind of GRE score that is. Typically, that is what I do. I know that a 325 benchmarks to about a 700 or so. Probably a 331, 332 benchmarks to 740. But use the converter to get whatever is most accurate. Yeah.
Because when you look at schools, the average GMAT score is around 720, while GRE score is around 320. So, if you convert 320 to GMAT, it's somewhere around 670 or something. So that's the problem I was having in actually converting this and looking at those perspectives.
Yeah, that has probably got to do with the fact that they don't have a lot of people applying with the GRE. So it may very well be that you're looking at a biased population. So schools don't plan to get a certain average. They usually get a certain average after they pick all the students, right? So what may end up happening is they may end up having around 200 to 300 applicants with the GMAT, but only about 4 or 5 applicants with the GRE. I'm just making up these numbers, okay, just to prove a point, but I'm not saying these numbers are representative. So it may turn out that the 4 or 5 GRE candidates that they've taken are very good because of their profile, not necessarily because of their GRE. And even if they had taken a GMAT and gotten a 670, they may have been selected by the school. That's what I'm trying to say here, right? So, but after you select these candidates and then you look at the averages, maybe those people fall on the lower end of the spectrum. Whereas the GMAT, because you have so many people, you have people at every end of the spectrum, right? So don't give the GRE averages too much credibility. If you belong to an overrepresented population, then I think it's fair to say that you should look at the equivalent GRE score for whatever it is that your profile requires.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. So I have a question in the chat window. Which universities in the US would you recommend for someone with 3 years of work experience while applying for management consulting or marketing consulting? So typically, I wouldn't recommend that you apply for a marketing consulting role if you are going to be applying to a school that resides in a foreign location, right? Most marketing roles, especially marketing for FMCG-based firms, assume that it is best done by somebody who has knowledge of the local population. So that implies that you would have grown up in that area, right? So if you don't grow up in the US, then maybe you will not be considered to be a good fit for a marketing position at, let's say, Procter & Gamble in the US, right? So that being said, management consulting is still fine. Most schools in the top 20 to 25 have very good management consulting outcomes. So if you are able to crack the 740 or 750, whatever it takes, And if you also have a very good profile, then by all means, I think you should apply to a top 20, top 25 program, and those will have great management consulting outcomes for you. So Harish has a question. I'm Harish from India. Hi, Harish. Finished my BCom in 2019, have been working with Deloitte Audit for 2 years. I have not taken the GMAT. I'm in my GMAT prep stage. By when should I take the GMAT and which round should I apply in? Harish, I think you're way upstream, all right? So assuming you are in process of preparing for your CA, right? You would currently be in your articleship period, right? So I would expect you to have about 3 years of post-qualification work experience, right? So if you finish your articleship next year, which is in 2022, you will have 3 years of PQE in 2025, all right? Assuming you're not preparing for the CA and this is actually a full-time role right now, then maybe about 4 years of full-time experience would be ideal. So 2023 is probably the year in which you should be applying. So definitely finish your GMAT by then. And given that you have such a long runway, I think you should be done with the GMAT by February or April of the year in which you're going to apply, and apply in round 1. So somebody else has a question. It's not possible for me to write the GMAT GRE in the current situation till next year, but how can I evaluate my profile to apply to go ahead with the waiver? Marketing profile, 5+ years experience, NIT undergrad with 8.2 CGPA. Have to give it a shot this year, but need help with the application too. Yeah. So I think in terms of profile, you have an excellent profile. So this is a candidate that I've spoken with before, and I know that they have a great track record of leadership. NIT is definitely a great school to study in. 8.2 is a great CGPA. So I think you have everything going for you. All right. The only, I think if you have to apply, you can definitely go ahead. You can request some colleges for waivers. I think MIT offers a conditional waiver, Ross offers a waiver, a few other colleges offer conditional waivers as well. Now, the issue here is we are in a situation where there are a lot of candidates who are taking the test and who are also doing very well on the test. Okay. So in such a scenario, it's a little unclear to me how exactly you will fare if you apply with a waiver. The best advice I can give you is that you may apply with a waiver if you choose to. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, the school is giving you that opportunity, and it's a free world, right? So, I mean, nobody's going to stop you from applying. In terms of conversions, I'm not very optimistic with the waiver, because there are a good number of candidates with 730s and 740s and 750s who will also be applying, who have roughly equivalent, or even if it's slightly a lower strength profile than yours, the GMAT adds a little bit more validation, right? So from that point of view, I think they may end up having an edge over you, and because of that, you may be at a disadvantage. So that's my feeling here. This is definitely not verified by data. This is just my opinion for what the outcomes are likely to look like this year. But having said that, like I said, this is your application and they have given you that opportunity. So by all means, if you feel like you want to go ahead, you should. With regards to helping with the application, yeah, definitely we can discuss that offline. I think we had a short discussion, but maybe if you want to refresh that discussion, we can have it offline. Yeah. So somebody else has a question. I'm a 26-year-old IT engineer from Mumbai. My academic profile is below average, 2 out of 4 GPA in BE IT. Please don't convert it to 2 out of 4 unless you were actually given a GPA out of 4, right? So just to give you some indication, 50% or 5.0, it's not a great GPA, all right, but it's borderline passing, all right? Whereas 2 on 4 is really bad, okay? So do not ever convert a 50% to a 2.0. Do not ever convert a 70% to a 2.8. The 70% is not that bad. It's not great. I mean, nobody's going to select you for the best and brightest PhD programs, but it's definitely above average and you're going to get good jobs with a 70%. All right. But the moment you start converting it to a 2.8, assuming, the conversion ratio is into 4 divided by 100, 2.8 is not a great GPA. If you look at it, in the US, a good number of people are actually able to score 3.2 or above. So your 70% is roughly equivalent to a 3.15 or a 3.2. All right. So think about why you're converting this from whatever scale it is that you have to 2. No GMAT. All right. Working in marketing since a few years. All right. I'm a mountaineer and a sustainability advocate. I recently raised 70K and climbed Everest while battling COVID and 2 cyclones and electrified a remote village during my campaign. I've been the ambassador of a few NGOs and big brands. Some professors and MBA schools between 20 to 30 rank are interested in having me. Do you think I stand a chance in UC Berkeley for MBA in marketing? Would you be willing to take up my case as an extracurricular profile of a public figure? I don't know what you mean by extracurricular profile of a public figure. All right. But primarily, I think whatever you've described as your activities, those are very impressive. All right. Definitely. I mean, you can count the number of people who've scaled Mount Everest. And if you're one of those, then definitely fortunate to have your introduction. Raising 70K is not a joke. Climbing Everest while battling COVID, that is very impressive as well, though I would have my questions as to why you had to do that. Electrifying a remote village during your campaign, that's great. Being the brand ambassador of a few NGOs and big brands, that's pretty great as well. Okay. Depends on your primary work profile also, but if your primary work profile is strong, then maybe you can consider a top 15 program, all right, which includes UC Berkeley as well. Definitely, like I mentioned, it is better to do this after you take the GMAT rather than before you take the GMAT. Okay, so that is there. The 20 to 30 will definitely work out. Okay, so that's there. Somebody else has a question. How important is it to attend online events of different schools, and what should I intend to get out of attending those events? I think it's very important to attend online events. And as for what you should get, if you have any questions about the program, then you can get answers to those questions. So that's very important. And even if you don't have any questions, you can always attend these sessions to understand how the school helps candidates like you, right? So sometimes you won't have any questions, but somebody else who's in a very similar position will have the same question. And the answer that they get will actually be useful to you as well. So it's definitely useful. You can get to know about all the opportunities that the school provides. You can get to know about STEM certifications or not. You can get to know about what kind of consulting projects they have. Sometimes the school also talks about what kind of students they want to take. So all of these possibilities exist, and definitely you can get news about all of this if you attend online events. Someone has a question to me. Have we changed the pricing by 10% like we mentioned in an earlier webinar? We have changed the pricing, yes, and we are probably going to change it once more. The consolidated effect might be around 10%. Currently, we've probably increased by around 5% or so. All right, so those are the questions I have on the chat window. Does anyone have anything else?
Karthik, hi, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Hi.
Who's this?
Hi, my name is Suvas.
Shwas, yeah, tell me.
Suvas. Yeah, I just read your website. I asked that pricing question right now. So I just wanted to confirm that there's a statement given there that it's possible to purchase a smaller school package and the interview preparation modules separately and school shortlisting. So is that still an option? And
that is still an option. I will explain to you how our packages work. So broadly speaking, there are 3 stages to the application process. There's the initial stage, which includes a profile review and a shortlisting. Okay. Then there is the middle phase, which includes help with essays, letters of recommendation, and resume. And then there's the final phase where we help with interviews. So these are the 3 different components of any application package out there. Now, different companies will package it differently. Okay, some companies will package each of these as separate components. Some companies will package everything together. There is, with regards to how we package this, right? The moment you get started with us, the first step is for us to understand what your background is, right? And we will provide you with some questions, and then we will request your answers to this. And people usually take about 10 days for this. 10, maybe 15. And after we get your answers, we will be able to review it and provide you with a shortlist. Okay. So these are the first 2 stages of all of our consulting packages. And these are the only 2 stages of what we call our shortlisting package. Okay. Because we actually have a deliverable at the end of the stage, which is we provide you with a shortlist. Now, after we agree upon the shortlist, then we move on to the application stage. So let's say we select a school to work on together, probably Cornell Johnson or NYU Stern, right? So we will set up a brainstorming call, and Stern has some of these essays like pick 6 and change. What do you think about change, and what are your goals, right? So we would ask you to come prepared with some initial thoughts, and then we will have an extensive discussion over a period of 1 hour. All right, it usually goes on for a little bit more than an hour. And in that 1 hour, what happens is I will push you, it's a high intensity call. So be prepared to be pushed. And I will make you question your fundamental assumptions. Why do I do this? Because they are not interested in, hearing your stories. They are interested in understanding you, which means they need to know why you did what you did. Right. So a story is basically saying, okay, something happened, something else happened, and finally we were victorious at the end. That's okay. I mean, that's fine. I mean, all stories have the same pattern. If you ask me, so I was giving an example. The people write stories about how they've triumphed over an adverse situation.
Adversity, right.
Yeah. And I've read essays written by different people. And to me, they are all the same. I mean, regardless of the fact that the context is different, the fact that somebody may be from the north, somebody else may be from the south. One could be a guy, another could be a girl. Somebody could be living outside of India. Somebody could be an IT engineer. Somebody could be like a petroleum engineer. Somebody could be a lawyer. But if you take out, all of these are just contextual elements. The fundamental thing is somebody is challenged by the environment. Somebody is challenged by somebody else. Somebody is initially distraught and unable to face up to those challenges. And then they basically they gather enough resolve, and they figure out a strategy to overcome those challenges, and they do so, right? So that is the combination of qualities that they demonstrate while they sail through this adverse situation. This is essentially a jolly LLB story or anything of that sort, right? So everybody has the same story. This is like, Karan Johar makes different movies, but they're all the same, right? So that's pretty much how it is. What matters more is your thought process, and we need to understand what your thought process is, right? And that is why I push you in these brainstorming calls. And once we understand what your thought process is, then the idea is to capture that in the essays, with the story playing a support function. Okay. So we'll do that in the brainstorming call, and then we'll put together a bullet point structure. And then what will happen is we'll close the call. You will write an essay based on the bullet point structure that we've devised. And then whenever you're ready, you will share a draft with me. My turnaround time is about 2 to 3 days under normal conditions. Closer to the deadlines, it could be 3 to 4 days. But I will give you my comments on how you can improve. And then you will share another draft with me. And then we'll keep going back and forth till you get it right. On average, I've seen that it takes about 15 days to get the first college done. It probably takes about 12 to 15 days for the second and the third colleges, and about 10 to 12 days for the fourth and the fifth colleges. All right. So this is the next stage. And in addition to the essays, we'll also be helping you with the letters of recommendation and the resume. The final stage is the interview prep stage. We have 2 mock interviews. But even before we get into the mock interview stage, we will share some videos with you about how you should be preparing for the interviews. What are they asking you for in the interview? So that's about 2 hours of material. And then we'll be sharing a questionnaire with you. And finally, once you've been through the videos and the questionnaire and you've prepared a little bit on your own, we'll schedule our first mock. It'll be a grilling session for 1 hour. And then I'll give you my feedback live on what you can do better. And after that is done, we will have 1 more mock interview where we will work on whatever questions you had problems with in the first session. We will just open up those questions and we will try to see what is the best strategy to overcome some of the weaknesses you may have had. So this is typically the structure. In addition to this, we also give access to our online course. So it's about 8 to 10 hours of material. There's about
that is for the interview preparation.
No, interview, we have 2 videos, but even for the application process, we have multiple videos.
Right.
So that covers an overview of the MBA application process. How do you write a goals essay? Then there's the question of how do you make a LinkedIn profile? How do you spruce up your LinkedIn profile? How do you reach out to people? So those videos are there as part of week 1. As part of week 2, we have a resume workshop. And week 3, 4, and 5, we have essay workshops for different schools, right?
Okay.
So all of those videos are also available. The essay workshops are current in 2019. So this year, some of the schools will have different essays, right? So these videos were recorded in 2019. But by and large, the sentiment is roughly the same. Yeah. So this is our package. Now, the 5 school includes all of these elements. The 3 school includes everything till the essay writing stage. The interview stage is not there by default. But for that, we'll charge separately, and then we can make it available to you.
Okay, because actually I faced problems during the interview only. I got a feedback from ISP. I was waitlisted there, and I was the one who asked the first question about Tepper.
Okay.
So I applied myself without taking the help of any consultant, and I got waitlisted at Tepper and ISP. And in the ISP feedback session, they told me to increase my GMAT, which is 720. So just increase it by 10 or 20 points, whichever is possible, and to work on the interview.
Okay. Then maybe the interview is an area that you should focus on. And, the GMAT to the extent possible, please try to improve. But other than that, I think 720 is actually fine for ISB, all right? It is part of the advice that they give people. Typically, 720 is okay. But interviews, if they've identified a problem, I think you need to work on it.
Okay, so that can be done separately.
It can be done separately. We have an interview alone standalone package as well, which just includes the last 2 components. So I can give you details about that, not an issue.
Okay, and just one more question about the application timeline, Karthik. I had seen one of your earlier webinars, and you mentioned that during the first month, we will be doing foundational work. So I just wanted to confirm, does it depend on the applicant how quickly he or she responds to your questionnaire and everything, or does it
broadly it depends on the applicant? Yeah.
Okay, so if I do it quickly, then I can get it done. I can try for round 1 deadlines.
Round 1 timelines are such that we may have at most 1 or 2 schools possible in round 1 by September end. All the other schools will have to be in October or later. This is just based on building things up together.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So there's a question: how much is the 1 school comprehensive package? Unable to find it on the website. So at this point, I believe we charge 75K plus GST for the 1 school package. For the 3 school, we charge 195 plus GST, and for the 5 school, we charge 250 plus GST. The 1 school, we don't do shortlisting, so you'll have to come to us and say, "Hey, Karthik, this is the school that I want to work on," and we will help you with that school. And the other thing about the 1 school is we have a soft limit that mostly it'll be American schools, not European programs. What do I mean by that? European programs typically have a lot of writing. Okay, so they have, I don't know, about 7 to 10 essays per program. Whereas US schools on average have somewhere between 2 and 4 essays. So we are completely okay with including between 2 to 4 essays as part of our one school package. But beyond that, we will require you to take it up as a higher school package, or we'll have a customized pricing for the one school package if it's a European program. Do you have one package only for essay? I mean, in some sense, all of this needs to be done in order to do the essay, right? So we've been asked this question before, but somehow I find it unable to separate the stages. So it's like making some food item, right? You need to make the batter, you need to make the idlis, you need to make the chutney, and all of these go together, right? Now, without making the batter, you can't actually make the idli, right? So without, so without doing the initial preparatory process, I would find it a little hard to work on the essays. But if you have something in mind, then maybe you can reach out to me and then I can tell you whether or not that seems feasible.
Karthik, I also have one quick question. Do
Yes,
you
sir.
have any spots left for round one? Because I know it's already too late for round one, and I just want to understand.
So it is a little difficult for us in round one, but the timelines are also not very conducive, Sai. We are signing up people, however, it's taking me a long time for me to get back to people. So I haven't been very responsive on email for the last 5 to 10 days or so, mostly because if I look at my current workload, the way it looks is I'm spending almost all of my time with the R1 applicants. And when I'm not on the phone, what I'm doing is I'm editing essays again for R1 applicants. So I'm actually not taking a lot of time for interviewing prospective applicants. And again, when I'm not on the phone, since I'm editing essays, I'm actually not able to respond to emails much. So if anyone's written to me and I haven't responded, this is what's happening. Kindly give me some time and please be patient. But the truth is we do have spots for R2. We haven't even considered opening up our R2 class yet, right? And I do think that some of the students who signed up with us in R1 are probably going to transition to R2 as well. So at this point, while we have a reasonably full roster for R1, I think only about half the candidates are seriously preparing for R1 and I'm spending all my time with them. The other half are probably going to do a little bit of R1 and a little bit of R2. Okay. So in terms of timeline, I may be able to take 1 or 2 more candidates in R1, but again, I've not been able to sit down and assess, with regards to who's in what stage of the application process. Write to me, and wherever I sense the possibility of an opening for R1, I will definitely let you know. But R2, definitely, we are open for R2.
Yep, sure. I mean, as we are speaking about that, I mean, just in your point of view, would waiting till R2 would make it more competitive, or how are these round one and round two chances?
Yeah, it's a little unclear. So in a typical year, that is till the 2019-20 application year, there wasn't a huge deal of difference between R1 and R2. Okay, but last year everything became very competitive. But even last year, I think we had some very good R2 results. I had somebody get into Tuck and Ross with a 730 last year, right? So that's not something that happens in any normal year, and definitely not in one of the most competitive years yet ever. So last year also our R2 results were not that bad. Okay. So, but this year I've had a very good R1 response. I have a lot of people writing to me with superlative GMAT scores. Not that all of them signed up with us, but definitely I got exposure to a lot of people with a lot of high GMAT scores. So if all of these people are entering the competition, then I expect R1 to be very competitive. And I expect some spillover in R2 as well. But again, nothing can be predicted. Yeah. So the idea is R2 may be a little bit more competitive than previous years. But assuming schools are able to manage the flow of applicants well, it won't be very bad. So that's my answer.
Cool, thank you.
So somebody has a question. Hi, Karthik, I'm writing my GMAT on September 5th. Can I reach out to you on September 5th for round 2? Please let me know if that'll be late. Sure, please reach out immediately after your GMAT is done. I think about 3 to 3.5 months is ideally recommended for about 5 to 6 programs. So that is the perfect timeline. So if you're done on the 5th, hopefully you're able to do very well on the GMAT. Please get in touch the same evening or probably the next day. And then hopefully by the 15th, we should be able to get started. All right. So that's all the questions I have on the chat window. Does anyone have any other questions in the session?
Hi, Karthik.
Hi, who's this?
This is Karthik.
Hi, Karthik. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Tell me, Karthik.
Yeah, so I have a question about early action actually. So when we apply to early action, so can we apply for the round 1 as well? And
for the same school or for different schools?
No, different school.
For different schools, you can apply. Okay. For the same school, definitely in any given year, you can only apply in 1 round. Now, what will happen is there are some colleges which offer what is called a binding condition. Okay. So what that means is, so this is true for Duke. Duke early action is binding. Columbia early action is binding. And Darden has both the binding and the non-binding option. So assuming you choose the binding option, what you're communicating to the college is that college is your number 1 choice, right? Yeah. And you are also making the commitment that if you get an admit offer from that particular college, then you will withdraw all the applications from the other colleges, all right?
Okay.
So by all means, you can apply to other colleges, but the moment this particular college in question makes you the offer, you are expected to say, hey, so let's say you got into Duke and you had also applied to Ross in round 1. You're supposed to write to Ross and say, sir, I've got an admit from Duke and this is a binding decision. So I'm going to be taking that up. Apologies. You don't have to continue with my application. So withdraw your application. That's the expectation.
Okay. What if, like, let's say the scholarship or anything related to that thing, if I want to drop off from the Duke?
Yeah, that is a question better directed at the admissions committee, because this is something that is likely to happen. You will get in, but maybe the scholarship is not suitable. So what do you do in that case? I think it's a question best addressed to the AdCom. I think it is a little unfair if they force you to take it up without giving you a suitable scholarship. So that is, I'm sure they have a way around it, but I wouldn't be able to speak for them. So you'll need to get it clarified by them.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Hi, Karthik. Just one quick question. We'll be working with you as a consultant, right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Throughout the process?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions? All right.
Hi, Karthik. Sorry to interrupt. Hi, Karthik.
No
how are you?
I'm doing very well, Harsh. How are you?
I'm good. So I recently gave the GMAT and I have 1 year of experience.
Okay.
And I am from IIT Madras. So, which even I guess you are, if I'm correct. So I had a question that, I have only 1 year of experience and I filled the form and you said that, you can contact us if you're in that 2 to 5 year range, given that, you have your own busy timelines. But if I wanted to, say, read up about the process that you follow, is there any standard deck that you have that, okay, like, this is how we help the candidates, or, any way where I can find your methodology so that, it can help me in understanding, what's your USP in terms of, like, say in terms of, like the essay reviews or anything, how do you go about doing that? What are your different plus points and all of that, so that it can help me analyze, make my decision better. So
sure. By and large, the process that I just outlined about 10 minutes ago, that's what we follow, Harsh. I don't know if you were on the call at that point.
No,
but,
I didn't. I joined the call, I guess, 5 minutes.
Okay. So you can review this video on YouTube. So we started at 6:30. So roughly about the 25-minute mark. That's probably when we started this discussion on our application process. See, it's a little hard to pinpoint a particular area and say we are better than others in this particular area, right? So at the end of the day, this is one consultant, one student, and there's a chemistry equation that works on between these two people, okay? Processes, this is not a commodity-based thing. This is a coaching service, right? So the processes may be very similar. I like to think that we follow something which is very exhaustive, but I'm sure most other reputable consultants follow similar or equally comprehensive but different processes, all right? But the interaction is probably going to be different because that depends on my personality, that depends on your personality. So you'll have to assess where you see a fit, all right? So that is likely to be different. And one thing I find that we are able to do very well, I am able to do well, is when we have our coaching calls, we are actually able to get into a lot of depth with regards to the applicant's thought process. And then when the applicant is able to capture all of that in their application, it makes for a very sincere and heartfelt essay. So this is something that we've been able to do very well. We've definitely had good results. Like I mentioned, all the top schools in every major geography. So Harvard and Booth in the US, INSEAD and London Business School in Europe, ISB, IMA and IMB in India, NUS, NTU and HKUST in the rest of Asia, right? So that's pretty much every top school out there. And partly because we follow a good process and partly because I think we genuinely care about our students.
That's good to know. And so yeah, I guess that was my query. I will go through the video on YouTube. And so actually a bit about myself. So I also gave the GMAT recently, and I have a score of 740 on that. So where I come from is that I have a ISB YLP admit,
okay,
which is supposed to start in July 22. But I was, of the opinion that, so I had a 710 when I had applied to ISB, and it sort of felt that, now that I have a very strong backup, like, I have a very strong leverage. So, why not give the GMAT again, try to improve the score?
Okay.
And if the results are in my favor, then, then why not try outside? And, and aim for B schools outside. So I guess based on, some very preliminary conversations that I've had with some people, I guess they've told me that GMAT score is good and they see the GMAT score as a filter. That, okay, anything above this, usually considered. And also, I am a bit worried that I come from an overrepresented Indian engineering male population. At the same time, I feel that, okay, there are areas where I can differentiate myself, and I have, at least 3 or 4 years to, do the same. So that's why I was a bit confused that, should I start now, or when should I start, really looking into it, or how does that work?
See, if you're going to be starting with ISB in July 22, then you should be applying now, regardless of whether or not you have 1 year or 2 years or 3 years of experience.
No. So the point is that I will probably, it'll be an either or, right? I mean, I have no qualms in, saying no to an ISB. I don't really believe in that bird in hand is better than 2 in a bush. I feel like, why not go for the 2 in the bush? I mean, so I have, absolutely no qualms in, saying, firstly, I'll ask ISB for a deferral of 1 year. That, at least give me some thinking time. Apart from that, even and if I'm convinced that, okay, if I want to go out, then I'll be, I won't even think, I won't really change the overall, I won't really change my my decision that, okay, let's just drop it.
Okay.
So
what I would recommend, Harsh, is maybe you can get in touch in the 3rd week of January or maybe in the 1st week of February or something. assuming you're not going to be applying this year, please get in touch with us at that time. We may come up with a very, very low cost but chargeable package, maybe for like an hour's or 2 hours worth of discussion. What we need to understand is we need to understand the possible career progression coming up over the next 2 years. Okay.
Absolutely.
We'll also need to understand what kind of extracurricular activities you are engaging in. We'll also need to understand whether there's possibility for improvement, further improvement in your GMAT. And based on that, we may be able to come up with a customized shortlist, a projected shortlist. Okay, not based on actual work experience, but based on projected work experience, right? And if that appears to be appealing to you, then you can postpone your ISB plans. If you think ISB is better, then definitely you can take it up, right? So February should be a good time for us to work on this.
Great. So I'll reach out to you then. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's all I have. Yeah.
All right. Does anyone have any other questions? Okay, I think that brings us to the end of our session. So if I haven't responded to you, I will. Please be a little patient, and it's just a difficult time for us. For people who are following this on YouTube, just click on show more and you will see a list of questions. Click on the timestamp and you can go to that particular question as per whatever the session is. And with regards to supporting us, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel as well. One more important thing that I wanted to let you guys know is next week, we will be having IESC's admissions director on our call. So we've been doing calls every other Tuesday, but this time alone, we are going to be having a call next Tuesday as well. And we will have a guest. IESC's admissions director will be joining us. So please sign up again. And if you have any questions about IESC, studying in Europe, visas, jobs, etc., she's going to be very forthcoming, and she's going to be sharing something that she may not be able to share in more formal presentation, right? So please sign up and keep supporting us, like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for joining us. Bye.
Thank you, Karthik.